I feel I almost need to give Dylan an apology. You see, I was never a big brother, so that was my chance to be a big brother. I was the one always getting those comments or things. Okay, this just came to me, and I apologize. It's a story, a side note. Oh gosh, I don't know. I was very young and in Sunday school and leaning back on a chair against a movable blackboard. Why it's a movable one, I don't know, but it moved. And I fell back and I cut myself by the eye. And long story short, I was taken to the emergency room in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. And the doctor, Dr. Barr, I remember him so well, came in to take care of me. And he said something about stitches. I remember my brother telling me all about getting stitches. You know that big needle Mom uses? It took my mother, 2 nurses, and Dr. Barr to hold me down. And then finally I said, okay, I'm ready. And he said, no, we're done. He had done it already while I was screaming. So, Dylan, I am sorry. I shouldn't have said that about it, taking an exam. All right. This is the last installment of a little series I've been doing, making observations and responding to observations that I have made about where we find ourselves in society and using the Psalms as the tool to address those. And maybe it is my age, because I'm being told and reminded over and over by Social Security and such that I'm getting older. So maybe it's my age, or maybe it's the years I've had to be able to look around and make observations. But either way, it seems to me that life's treadmill is moving faster than it's ever been moving. Its pace is at such a point that yesterday's output is lacking in today's marketplace. More is expected of you. The demands are higher than ever before. And your output is required. It also means that we need to expand our toolbox in order to deal with this massive, rapid changing world we live in. We need things that'll help us deal with the accelerated pace of life. So we use things like ZipRecruiter, Indeed.com, and an assortment of other apps. We also use Dropbox and Boost Notes and more than I know what to even call them all, just to keep our heads above water. And yet, while we do all of this, we're still finding ourselves taking in more water. As one person put it, I think we're on a treadmill running as fast as we can, yet the faster we run, the farther away the people are appearing, and we're going nowhere. And for all the bells and whistles and notifications that we use to help ourselves, it still seems that we're losing ourselves, and it still seems that we're falling farther and farther behind. Maybe these observations of mine are true. Maybe they aren't. But that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm perceiving. What are you seeing these days? Another example, our praise of multitasking, which glorifies and celebrates the ability to succeed while at the same time juggling 2 or 3 very different tasks, all at once. And tied in with that, I believe, is the glorification of tiger moms and protecting bear cubs and statements like that. Being a supermom basically is what it's saying. And in the process, we've created an atmosphere that I think embarrasses, humiliates, and degrades anyone who won't or can't live up to these outrageous lifestyles or standards that we have set for everyone. And to confuse the picture even more, I've recently been reading certain articles about the fact that all of this thinking and all of these practices that we have been celebrating don't necessarily increase productivity or super kids. And it's possible that it even hinders our output and stifles our creativity. It may even, as one article said, be causing some negative impact upon our health. Could we now be coming to our senses, do you think? In realizing that this hyper-busyness that we've applauded and we've celebrated over these past years really isn't as good as we think it is? Maybe we're finally getting to a place where we can begin to ask ourselves the important questions that really need to be asked about and help us define who we are. I think some of us do feel somewhat caught up on a merry-go-round, seeing it building up in speed as it goes around and around and around, not extending out to anything, just making us feel farther behind. And yet the reality, from what I'm reading now, is saying just the opposite for our lives. So for me, and I'm speaking just for myself, and maybe this speaks to you too, Psalm 80 speaks to this journey we're on as a people of faith. It reminds me, at least, of my personal journey, that my personal journey is attached to the spiritual journey of my faith forebears. You see, it reminds us, this psalm, of our story, of who we are, and that we cannot forget our spiritual past, nor the fact that it does help define our spiritual present story. This morning, giving Dylan that Bible is one very significant way that we can help lift up and influence and celebrate his spiritual roots and our spiritual roots at the same time. Because the Bible contains a myriad of stories about such things as the struggles and the pain that happens in captivity. It speaks of the freedom and the salvation that comes from leaving a sense of bondage. The receiving and the reclaiming of a relationship that had been lost to us, a relationship with Almighty God, and now is found again. The chance to have restarts in life over and over. And restarts in love and grace. It tells us of a nationhood evolving from a clan nomadic existence. It tells of betrayals and missteps and pitfalls that occur when moving from a loosely held confederacy to a united, strong, focused nationhood. It tells of what happens when a nation also gets distracted from its original purpose. And it goes on to tell us how much the divine loves us. Oh, this Bible. It's an incredible book, an incredible story that tells us so much about our past, but also so much about our present and what can be our future. Yes, there's been a lot of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. But it's during such moments that the Bible shows us that we can find ourselves in the midst of all of that. And we can find what we need in order to deal with that. On the one hand, our spiritual journey is centuries old, as I said, but today it's brand new. It's real. It's inviting. It's here in the now. And if you think it isn't, then I'm afraid you may have missed the message that it's giving out to you. We'll always have that weeping, that wailing, and that gnashing of teeth. But we do it within the context of being a people of faith. And we do it with the knowledge that all of that weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth is really a precursor, an advent to something new and something exciting going on in your life. You are on the cusp of exciting things. Change is in the air, not just the change from summer to fall, but changes in the air for you as a congregation, a people of faith. And that means adjustments and new experiences and new hopes and new dreams and new opportunities to rethink who you are and look at your past and look at what you want for your future. And out of all of that, you will become a stronger person and a stronger people. And you will become a better disciple and a better follower of Jesus Christ, because you will know what your ministry is calling for. When we were in bondage, in captivity, however you wish to define it, we sought out God and we listened to God. We sincerely tried to follow the path that God laid before us, which wasn't necessarily always automatically a smooth one to walk. But it was a path that led us out of that bondage, out of that captivity, and led us into a wholeness, a completeness in life. Was it easy? No. Did we struggle along the way? Absolutely. Did it take longer than we had thought, and did we learn something along the way? Yes. And did we achieve our goal? I want to immediately say yes, definitely, but we're still on that journey. We're getting closer and closer, but we're still on that journey. We've entered the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land where the people found and worked at and created a nation out of. And it's those people that you are a spiritual remnant of today. And you can't forget that. And the mistakes that they made are probably the same mistakes you've made or you're making. The struggles that they have are very similar to the struggles that you're having today. But the relationship they established and saw blossom with their God, their Creator, is very similar to the one that you have and that is blossoming and flourishing with your Creator. Their story is your story. It's been retold over and over. It's been relived over and over. It's had its highs and its lows, but it's always been moving forward. In spite of our wants, in spite of our desires, in spite of our distractions. Distractions like what they had. Wanting to look like other nations. Wanting to be like our neighbors. Being seduced by other cultures. Thinking the grass is greener on that side of the fence than on the one you're on. And sometimes not being true to or losing our foundational underpinnings of lifting up leaders to making them almost godlike. These are some of the things that we've done that they did. And of course, we can say as much as we want, well, that was then, this is now. The only difference is the names of the people, then and now. Everything else is very similar. We're still wavering. We're still unsure of ourselves. We're still distracted by the things that grab our attention and tease us. It's true, we're going to have a number of hiccups along the way. There's no denying that. But in the midst of all of that messiness, the promised land is still there. You see, the God that we worship is not a God of prosperity, no matter who is trying to sell that. The God that we worship is not a God of the pie in the sky, no matter who's trying to sell it. The God we worship is a God of reality. Sometimes a super messy God who loves us in the best of times and in the worst of our times. Who gets down in the mud with us and goes into the darkest of dark with us in order to be there to help us out of those messy, muddy, dark areas of our lives. That's the God we worship. That's the God we are here glorifying today. The one who never forsakes us. And because there's so much distraction around us, I invite you to turn to that psalm, Psalm 80. It's a psalm of help. It says, look where you've come from. Look what you've been through. Yes, you've strayed. Yes, you've stumbled. Yes, you've stubbed your toe. You've made mistakes. You've gotten confused. You've been distracted. But you're not lost. You have the faith, the strength, and the know-how to get up and move forward and do so with your God, because your God is there right beside you, wherever you may be. And it's our prayer our prayer of thanks and of help, for help that goes something like this. Okay, God, I may have lost my way, but you haven't lost me. You're still there, right beside me, in the best of times and in my worst times. And you still love me. Thank you. I'll try to do better. I'll try to be better. It's been said by many great people, something like this. Your priorities need to be in the following order: God, self, family. Sometimes we get that mixed up. I certainly have. But it's important to remember God, self, family. You need a solid relationship with God in order to have a healthy appreciation of self, so that you can have a strong commitment to those you love. How true that is. So now that the summer is over, you've done all the trips, the vacations to all over the country, you've gone to the lake, you've been on the boat, you've attended family vacations and family reunions, and you've done your reminiscing. You've spent time in your campers, your RVs, or at your cabin. Now that all of that's over, this is a good time, I think, to remember, after all the clutter of the many distractions out there, good though some are, it's a good time to remember that God is still there. God's still there, loving you, caring about you, holding you, crying with you, forgiving you throughout it all, reminding you of the fact that you are part of a people, part of a nation with flowing milk and honey, because you're part of the Church of Jesus Christ. Amen.